Hey everybody, it's Twana with Destiny Education. So, continuing on with our fear conversation, today we're really going to dive into what fear is opposite of. This is vitally important, and let me explain why. If you don't understand that the opposite of love is not hate, it's fear, then you are not understanding why so many of your relationships are crumbling. So, are you tired of watching relationships fall apart around you? If so, then let's get moving. Last conversation we had, we talked about how fear is a spirit and that spirit can only live in inaction. So, what is the opposite then of fear? The opposite of fear is love. So a lot of people say, no, it's not. The opposite of love is hate. What is hate rooted in? It's rooted in fear. And so if I am afraid of something, I often meet that something with hatred. Let me give you an example. I once worked with a man who was a Klansman. He was a supremacist. And I know for a lot of you that's a surprise. It is not a surprise. In my life, I've worked with a lot of supremacists. I don't have any problems with them. Because at the end of the day, I understand where that nastiness comes from, where that belief comes from. So, where did his belief come from? It came from a bombardment from his childhood of people constantly telling him about their theories and ideas of who blacks, Latinos, Asians, anyone who wasn't white were. They always shared their thoughts and they bombarded him with them. And since he grew up in an area where none of those people existed, they just didn't live there, he didn't have any interaction of his own. Interestingly enough, while he was younger, he was at school one day and ended up in a situation where someone came out to attack him for no reason. He was just sitting at lunch, and all of a sudden, this is two or three guys, I think it was, came out of nowhere to attack him. Well, the people who came to save him, interestingly enough and ironically, did not look like him. The ones who attacked him looked exactly like him, but the ones who came to save the day were not. They were all darker skinned. And so they got the guys off of him and they would not let them go back to hurting that boy. They helped him stand up and they said, "You okay to go home?" And he said, "Yeah." And if I recall the story correctly, his family member or somebody came along and started trying to attack the guys who helped him. And he stood up for him, and that night he got beaten. How dare he lie for these people who look like they did and who were the ones who actually attacked him? The problem is when we are bombarded with lies in the face of the truth, it reaches a point where our mind shifts and decides to accept the lie over the truth. The beating that this young man took was so brutal. Not only had he been beat up and assaulted by a group who looked like him, saved by people who look like me, now he's being beat up more by people who look like him. The hatred he felt for the people in his household was great. And so instead of putting that hatred on those people because they were his family and he had to stay with them, he turned it to a group who looked different. This is not uncommon in the fear scenario. It's often how it works. And it's one of fear's greatest weapons and secrets. As long as it can confine you to a lie, it can take ownership of your experience. It takes love and a whole lot of patience to break fear's hold and grasp on the individuals that it has. When people get hurt by people they are supposed to love them and take care of them, they don't know what to do with that rage. It oftentimes will metamorphose and reveal itself in ways of fear because they just don't know what else to do with it. So, what does that mean? Here's what that means. It means that going forward and growing up, it impacts their life to a place that they can never ever have a normal life. Until they deal with the offense that happened, fear gets to reign supreme. So, one of the reasons you find all these parents out here who just don't love their kids is because there's something that they didn't deal with. And it's metamorphosing itself and it's presenting itself as rage, as anger, and as fear. I want to tell you recently there was a young father who took his 3 kids outside and shot them. And I was really, really interested in what made him decide to do that. And so as I was watching the video, I watched him very closely. And it was really funny to me because the people who were around him were extremely judgmental. They had already decided who he was and oh, he's the devil and oh, he's that. But when I looked at him, I said, something isn't right with this situation. So let's watch this. And so I watched when he had to go before court. He pleaded guilty. He didn't say he was innocent. He didn't try to run away. He did what he did, and he went to jail for it. The mother was there, and she said she tried to stop him, but she got her hand cut. I don't know about you, but if a man was truly crazy enough to be trying to kill my children, the children that we bore together, I'm not walking away that day alive. You understand what I'm saying? But no one ever stopped to look at the mother. What had she done? What had she said? Why didn't she fight harder for those babies? Was she such a wimp that a cut on the hand was more of a pause than saving the lives of her sons? There was more to that story. And so as they described the scene that they walked up on as they were waiting on him to plead, this man welted up with emotion. Whatever happened that day impacted him on such a level that hearing what he had done almost killed him. You sat there as you watched the video and you just watched his heart break. This is what fear looks like when we leave it untapped and uncontrolled. It is nothing but destructive. Its only goal is to destroy everyone and everything that it can get its hands on. And that's why it's so vitally important that you fight it. And it's so vitally important that you understand the only way outside of the individual's action and plan is love. And let me tell you why. And we're talking about genuine love. We're talking about ride or die kind of love, not the, oh, I love you, and then I turn around and call you out of your name. Yeah, that's not love. That's the illusion of love, because that's nothing. It's air. It's just poof, it's fairy dust. Genuine love is hardcore. Genuine love gets in your face and says, this is not okay. And this is not acceptable. And if you want to be at the head of this family, you are going to do whatever it takes to learn how to lead. Well, ladies, quit expecting your men to know, because what we're not looking at is the fact that most of us have been born and raised in single parent households. And it's so funny because I love the fact that people will look at dad going off to work and mom staying home and say, oh no, that's a two-parent household. Actually, you're wrong. It's not. Because when dad comes home after the kids have already gone to bed, guess who the kids have been with all day? Mom. And then they get to see dad once a week. So dad becomes the party guy. He's the guy I go to have fun, but mom's who I go to for everything else. You see, fear is what allowed this world to be structured in the way that it is, so that the destruction of the family was imminent. There was no way to avoid it because it's built into the fabric of who this society is, of who the world is. A true two-parent household has dad in a place where he's bringing in income and he and mom are both home every day. The family's making money. They're doing what they need to do. The kids work in the business. That is a functioning, happy family. And psychiatrists will disagree until the heart's content. But too many psychologists and psychiatrists are so far screwed up in the head. Please don't help me. You can't figure out your own life. And too many people won't tell them that. So they give them these responsibilities. They give them the ability to medicate. And next thing you know, you've got people who are strung out on medication and can't figure out how to stand back on their feet again. All of this is powered by fear. And if no one stops it, it can't help but destroy every single thing it touches. That's what fear is. Because when it can destroy what is around you, it can stop you from growing. The goal of fear is to destroy. It comes to steal. It comes to kill. And it comes to destroy. Which is really no different than what Satan is there for. Just as he steals, kills, and destroys, his henchman, fear, does the same thing. On Monday, we're going to go into how to overcome fear, how to prevent fear from taking over our lives. But before we close completely, there's one last thing I want to share with you. In the next episode, we're going to talk solely about the impact of love on fear and why love has the power to extinguish the effects and impacts of fear. See you Monday.